Well, did the stream start? It seems it started. So,
Looks started to me.
yeah, it looks started to me too. So let's. This one is not needed. So yeah, welcome everybody. Is it started in the soapbox? Yeah, it is. Welcome everybody. This is another review stream of this topic, understanding per capita, and this time I don't actually do a review stream because I think the guy is wrong. I just think there is more to be said, and he probably knows it as well. It's just he did a 10-minute video, and in a 10-minute video you can only bring so much content. And yeah, so I had a few extra thoughts, but these are less planned out. I just will go more or less alongside my YouTube comment, what I wrote there. And I also have Tekkendog again on. Hello.
Hello, back again.
Yeah. And so he is not, I assume he has not watched the video. But yeah, he can, since I'm not in a teaching mode like the usual streams, or at least not as much, perhaps he will have more insight this time than other times. But yeah, I will start the video. If you have any thoughts, you can tell me to stop, and yeah, I may stop in between as well because it's a review and you can't just watch the whole thing in one go. But my main thoughts will be at the end. So yeah. By the way, yeah, I think MentisWave did a good job. So if you want to show him some love, go watch the video and like it as well. So yeah, anyway.
Hey, internets. So one thing a lot
Hello, MentisWave.
of people struggle with is the concept of per capita. Because the thing a lot of people get wrong on this one is that there's more to per capita than just per capita. Or really, there's just more to statistical reasoning than per capita. And so this is going to be a quick rant explaining the per capita thing in a bit more detail, why it matters, what it implies, but also when it doesn't matter or doesn't imply what it usually would. Now, the quick rundown of what per capita means is based on the Latin phrase that means by heads or for each head, and it's used to mean something per person, with the point being just recognizing the statistical reality that the averages of chances of something to happen often matter more than just the actual base amount of it happening. For example, in the United States, every year more people die as the result of peanut butter than they die as the result of fugu. Does this mean that peanut butter is more dangerous than pufferfish? No, absolutely not. Of course not. That's completely ridiculous. It's just that very, very, very few people are eating fugu. And when they are eating it, it's usually being prepared by a very skilled chef because we know that it's a dangerous food to eat. The toxins.
Do you have some commentary already, or just don't want to have the video playing for too long in one stretch? So I assume it's a pretty commonly known concept, and most people understand the concept. I just think that some people don't like the conclusions of the idea, and so they play dumb. I mean, not in a deliberate way, more in a if I accept this, then
I don't think you can underestimate the unintelligence of people. Yeah, that's the left.
I just think sometimes stupidity is due to worldview and not due to low intelligence. For example, a statement I've heard someone say is Muslims can be the most stupid people, and as soon as they deconvert, they immediately turn smarter. And it isn't meant to say now they agree with me and before they didn't. It's meant to be during the time when they were Muslims, they didn't understand certain types of arguments, or certain types of logical reasoning, and when they switched, then they suddenly started to understand it. And so I think worldview can actually limit or boost how much people are willing to understand or are capable of understanding. So I think that also plays a role, and it's not just the education and intelligence of a person. But yeah.
But that's your worldview is the filter you're running everything through. So if your filter says, that there's 87 different genders, then you're filtering things through, trying to filter reality through your fantasy. So naturally you're gonna sound stupid.
Yeah.
Even if you're smart.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to defend the indefensible, and then yeah. But yeah.
If not properly removed, can cause someone to die of respiratory failure. And of course, the number of people who are even just trying to eat fugu are less than 1% of the people eating peanut butter. So that's just a basic example of why the reasoning of per capita is important. If we human beings were too dumb to have this per head concept, then we would be doomed to believe some really dumb things. Which, unfortunately, a lot of us kind of are. Especially when it comes to confirmation bias and believing that which we ideologically align ourselves with. I think the most obvious example of this was the man or bear question. If you're hiking in the woods, would you rather come across a man, or would you rather come across a bear? All feminista nonsense and politics aside, the only thing about this question, in the end, that really matters is which one of the two is more likely to be dangerous. Say you're on a hiking trail and you find yourself face to face with another random man in the woods, or if you find yourself face to face with a bear in the woods. Which one is more likely to rip your face off? And which one is more likely to just be another fellow hiker and nod and wave at you and walk by you and do nothing?
By the way, there are bears that eat you alive, and you are alive for hours while being eaten and dragged around. So it's not just ripping your face off. Chimpanzees do that already, but eating alive for hours, yeah, I think that's not something pleasant. But yeah.
I don't know. This is a really tough question. So yeah, that's kind of...
Did you want to say something?
No, I was gonna say that part there, he kind of, I don't know, kind of sounded like he was setting it up. I don't know what you want to call it, disingenuous. I don't know which one's a fellow hiker and which one's gonna rip your face off. Well, like you kind of know the answer to that question, but that's when these feminists are talking about this. That's not what they're asking. Is which one's gonna rip your face off? We know what they're getting at. They're getting at assault, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's of course it's a and it's also a bit ironic that the ones that they want to protect the most and say are least accountable for violent deeds are the ones which actually do it the most per capita.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think, but it's I think from the feminist lens, it's more like, who do I feel unsafe? And it is the bear is a more distant threat, so they do not really realize that's a threat. And it's also true that most bears will make a big arch, like a big... most bears are shy, so they will not approach you, and that's not true with most men, or at least not in the same way. And so yeah, it's of course it's a bit more complicated than what he set up. So, but I would still say the thing which he set up is the most relevant question. All the other questions are also relevant, but they are less of a lower priority, as in final effect. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they're familiar with men, and most you spend more time around men. The statistics are more men are likely, you're more likely to be hurt by a man because that's who you're around. Women don't spend time around bears. If they spend as much time around bears as they did men, they'd change their mind.
Yeah.
It's like driving. You could statistically say driving a car. If you spend more time on the road driving, you're more likely to have an accident. Therefore, you should speed down the road as fast as you can to spend less time in your car so you don't have an accident.
That's a German Autobahn motto. Yeah. That's yeah.
They're just a silly clown world recent example. A lot of people got that one wrong, part of it just simply because of cultural misandry and feministas being a little bit dumb, but another big part of it is just people genuinely not understanding per capita. There are a lot of people out there just citing the base core statistics of the fact that, oh hey, more men do a violent crime towards other people than say bear attacks happen per year. And if
I think here it's not that they are dumb enough. I think they feel that one thing is the correct answer, and then they will choose these facts that most support that answer. And so it's more about this. And if they were to emotionally distance themselves, they would have been smart enough to understand it. It's just that they already have found a solution, and when they bring arguments, then they don't really care about the logic. They care more about convincing people. So I think that's the reason there, and not because they are too stupid to understand it. But perhaps, yeah, that's me again overestimating the intelligence of people. It's certainly a possibility.
those people were just disingenuous pseudo-intellectuals, but a few of them seem to actually believe their own BS. They seem to not understand that it doesn't really matter the base number of bad things that men do per year and base number of bear attacks that happen per year. What matters is, in that moment, in the context of that question, who is more likely to do something bad to you? A man or a bear face to face? And of course, the answer is it's far, far more likely to be a bear, because per capita bears are more dangerous. That's really it. All of the other things about the discussion, there's some interesting...
I just had a thought here. The issue is if you go hiking and then you come across 100 men and one bear, and 5 of these 100 men are mean to you and 1 of these bear are mean to you, then you still have to be more careful about men, because it just happens more. So it's sometimes per capita is not relevant, but yeah, perhaps he will say that.
Things there. I even did a whole video on it. But ultimately, if you want to know the base reason why the side of saying that you would not want to pick the bear is right, it really just came down to per capita. And that's also just a good example of how a lot of people let politics get in the way of just obvious reasoning. And again, there have been many, many, many videos made on the whole man-bear question. But for this video, there's an additional thing here in regards to per capita that a lot of people miss. And this can be found by asking ourselves the question, okay, what is the solution to the bear question? Does the fact that bears are very dangerous per average encounter mean that the solution to the bear problem is that we should mobilize the entire United States military to hunt down and exterminate the bear menace? Sign up at your local recruitment station today so that you can participate in total bear death. Well,
I find that funny, funnily stated. And I actually have a comment here, or in my larger comment below the video, I wrote something down. I'm quickly checking which it was. Here. Yeah, in Switzerland we have bears, not that many, but we have them. And usually, essentially, we have a policy of leaving the bear or the wolf alone, unless it starts to feel, it starts to lose its fear of humans. And as soon as it stopped fearing humans, we are allowed to shoot it. And so it's essentially every dangerous animal that stops fearing humans, we mobilize the whole Swiss military to kill all of these bears. It's exaggeration. We have hunters, and then we say usually you are restricted from shooting these wolves and bears, but now within
But
this
now it's in your backyard, so you can shoot it.
yeah, now this protection is limited for this specific individual, and then it's allowed. But Swiss is a very regulated place, so it's a bit done a bit annoyingly. So, for example, now when it comes to shooting the wolf, I've heard one example that they had like 2 or 3 weeks to shoot him, and if you have a few, what's called with wolves? They are not living in herds. What are the wolf? What?
A pack.
Oh yeah, pack. Yeah, of course. If you have like 5 wolf packs in the region, and one of these wolves you are allowed to shoot, it's not that easy to find that specific wolf within a very limited time frame. And so there is a funny story I've heard in the military. It's always a bit risky to trust military stories, but in one of the remote villages, one of the farmers just said, "Yeah, let's shoot him," or he just shot him, but this wolf had a tracker on it, and so he just attached the tracker to the local train, and then it was running with the I don't know what the American unit would be, but with 50 miles per hour, it was running back and forth on the same route for a few weeks until the scientists noticed it. So it was a way of obfuscating that it was killed and where it was killed. Yeah, but it's always a bit dubious if you hear stories like this, because how much they are invented, how much they are true. It's yeah. And I also so I don't I haven't heard it in first hand. I think it's at best second hand. But yeah, anyway. Sometimes shooting bear with the whole American military is the right answer. Just saying.
No, that's obviously a very, very, very dumb solution.
No, that's a very smart solution under certain conditions. But anyway.
Because bears are dangerous per average encounter doesn't really mean you actually have to do anything about it. When things are working properly in nature, bears don't even end up interacting with us very much. Bears are considered a keystone species. They are good and necessary for the environment to work. Just because
I think one difference is Switzerland, everything is human territory, and in America, you have large territories where there are barely any humans. So yeah, that's of course a big difference.
It's not really up north, yeah, but down like in Tennessee and stuff, there's people everywhere and there's bears everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem they have with bears is they get into your trash can and they'll get into your car if it's not locked up and you have food in it.
Yeah, is it a brown bear or a black bear?
Black bear.
Okay, that's a different thing. We don't have black bears. We only have brown bears. So I think
the black bears are, well, it's another per capita question. The black bears are more aggressive towards people when they are around you, but is that just because they tend to live closer to people than the brown bears do?
I don't know. I've heard that. What was the saying? I will quickly check it. It's I think I once heard something like if you encounter a brown bear or with one color you have to cower, with one you have to fight, and with one it's pointless. With the white bear, a polar bear, it's pointless anyway.
Yeah.
I forgot which is the yeah, here. If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lay down. If it's white, say good night. That yeah, I think black bear are probably lost the fear of humans, and that's why they are more dangerous. I speculate but they are also weaker and more cowardly. So if you punch them in the face, they will run away, based on what I've heard. But yeah, I've never been close to a black bear. We have brown bears, not the grizzlies, but normal brown bears, and I don't think fighting back will do you any good. And so,
Yes, sir. I don't know if they eradicated the bears in my area or what, but there's black bears to the south, brown bears to the west, and grizzlies to the north.
yeah,
And around here, there's none.
yeah. Yeah, in Europe or in Switzerland specifically, we had eradicated a lot of animals, and now that they're coming back, we have to take care of them because of the environmentalist people. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's with its problems, and yeah, we had a few years ago we had a vote if we are allowed to shoot wolves. Like Switzerland voted on it, and the city people all said no, and the rural people all said yes, and then we found a consensus. Yeah, it's yeah, that's what happens if you are allowed to vote on stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, we had the same thing out in around our national parks because the city people thought it'd be great to bring the wolves back, and all the farmers said no, 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 no.
Yeah, I think there are two issues. One, wolves are very smart, and so the city people think, yeah, just put a fence around it or have herd dogs or whatever. And the herd dog, even though it's a herd dog, it's still a dog, and the wolf is a wolf. I mean, we don't have the Yellowstone wolves, which are huge units. We don't have these, but still, wolves are still really, really smart and wild. And another thing is, I think most European wolves are by now a mixture because they interbred with certain dogs, and now they don't react to things which are supposed to scare off wolves because they also are partially dogs. And yeah, it's a very complicated issue. And yeah, the statement a farmer I've heard said a statement, why not release crocodiles in the lake which is close to the city? He's in favor of that. Yeah. No, it's a huge issue, and in my opinion, uh, it's something which, in the beginning, people are hesitant to react to it because they think, yeah, they are rare and few and cause little harm. And as time goes on, they start to multiply, and then, yeah, at some point, then people realize, yeah, we actually have to do something, and they react a bit too late, so some people will have damages, and then the farmers are compensated by the government for the damage that is done, but yeah, it's still annoying. And which farmer wants to go to his herd and see every single sheep is slaughtered, even if they get back the money? So yeah.
Well, the whole nature argument. It's nature. Well, man is part of nature too. We're here, like, and then you take some of their territory, and then you want to reintroduce them, and then they don't have the area to spread, and they don't have as much access to food. But then their numbers grow, so then they have to move into the city, and they start taking dogs and babies, and like, yeah, we're part of the natural process too, where we keep these things at bay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the violent swing one way where we have to start reintroducing all these species, and then they don't want to do anything about it and don't want to accept reality. And then we have the violent swing the other way where we have to go out and eradicate them all.
I think we don't have to eradicate them all. And as of
Yeah,
now, as far as I'm aware, no wild animal killed a human. I mean, no wild animal. I mean, bear, wolf, lynx, fox,
Yeah.
stuff like this. The boar, I'm not sure. I think the two most dangerous animal in Switzerland is the tick and the cow. And probably dogs.
Ours, probably the deer because of all the car wrecks.
I don't know about this one. We probably have issues with that too, but I don't know. Yeah. It's always a thing. People wildly underestimate and overestimate the danger of certain animals just because they look cute or they don't look cute. Yeah.
Because a bear encounter can be dangerous if you come face to face with them. That doesn't mean you actually have to do anything. The correct answer to the bear question is therefore to just leave them alone. Let the bears live deep in the forest where they belong and let them do their bear things. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but hopefully I'm making my point here, which is that just because there's a per capita issue doesn't automatically mean that your solution to that per capita issue is the best solution. There's usually more to the story.
Let's leave the Somalias in Somalia.
Which means that if you're not careful, per capita can actually trap you in an oversimplification fallacy. There's a lot more to statistical reasoning, especially in regards to politics and philosophy, but also pretty much anything, than just per capita alone. There's often, yes, the dreaded word nuance involved. Like, here's another example I see often being thrown around. A post from PSA Sitch. This is the right-wing version of not understanding per capita. And it's quoting Shannon Hill. I don't see a single blue state, just blue cities trying to tell us how to live. And it's a map of the United States, mostly all voting red Republican, but then with a few blue dots. And of course, the issue here that PSA Sitch is pointing out is that, yes, those blue dots are less likely, but there's way more people living in those blue dots. When it comes to the two-party system of the United States, I think we kind of all know that Republicans tend to get a lot of votes from less populated rural areas, and Democrats tend to get a lot of votes from the more populated urban areas. Pretty basic stuff. And thus, when it comes to...
What?
AKA democracy is stupid.
No, I would say every culture has a rural versus urban divide or tension. That's very normal across any type of organizational system.
Yeah, and then they fight each other over political control, aka democracy is stupid.
No, I don't think that's unique to democracy. I think that happens in monarchy as well, or in whatever. Also anarchy, they will do it the same. It's just, yeah, that's just human nature. If you have to work together and if you have different living conditions, then you have different interests and then you fight. That's normal.
Yeah, I think it's different when you're all wrestling for control of the government gun and trying to point it at the other ones.
I think the gun is less the issue and more the rules. The gun is just a consequence of it, but if you create a anarcho-capitalist alternative, then it's not one gun, then it's just multiple guns that people fight over, but they will fight over just the same. I think that's has nothing to do with the government structure. But yeah, I may be wrong.
Total votes, when you look at maps like this, it's entirely possible for there to be more total votes from the blue areas, or more per head if you're just looking at these districts as heads. And I often see a lot of times libs will make fun of Republicans for this, saying, oh haha, Republicans don't get it, and to some degree, yeah, there's a lot of Republicans who don't get per capita here. But there's also another interesting midwit meme involved in this, where the low IQ guy is just looking at the map and saying, herder, I see more red than blue, and the midwit was going, ah ha ha, Republicans are dumb, they don't don't understand per capita, and perhaps maybe on that degree he's right. But then you have the more interesting nuanced take, which is when you start questioning the very legitimacy of universal suffrage. Because a long time ago, it really was just landowners who were able to vote. And was that fair back then? No, it wasn't. But the federal budget sure as heck was a lot more balanced. And so there's additional questions like that when it comes to per capita. Sometimes there's a quality over quantity take in addition to per capita. Which then leads to realizing that another thing with per capita is that you also have to look at the distribution. This is something a lot of people misunderstood in my previous videos in regards to the Groypers and the JQ. A lot of people thought that I was just suddenly going back on per capita and then suddenly not understanding per capita when it comes to dajus. And perhaps I just didn't make it clear enough. So here's another explanation. When it comes to a population group having a disproportionate...
Did you make a sound?
Nope, not me.
Okay.
high amount of guilt per capita towards a certain problem, you also have to look at how the distribution goes. For example, let's say you're living in the US and there's 100 elves in the country. And out of these 100 elves, there are 300 thefts that take place per year. Now, that of course, as an ethnic group, is a very widely, ridiculously high amount of theft per capita compared to any other ethnic group. But consider two different models. In Model A, you have one elf out of these 100 elves committing 300 acts of theft, and a local judge just keeps letting that one elf walk free for some strange reason. And then in Model B, all 300 elves commit anywhere between 2 to 4 thefts per year. Now in both of these models, technically per capita, they're the same. But of course, they're both very widely different in terms of what's going on. From a purely consequentialist perspective, you could, in theory, justify arguing throwing all the elves out based on Model B. But you obviously can't make that argument based on Model A. And of course, in both cases, we're still really only looking at 100 elves here. So as long as your society's normal method of dealing with thieves is in place, as long as that's functioning, it's not really a big thing to be concerned with. As long as that system is in place, the elves that are actually guilty of doing something wrong will end up removing themselves. And
do you think, I think that's his main point of the video, which he just brought, the distribution thing. All the other thing is just preamble. Is preamble the correct word? I think so. But yeah, essentially the whole point of this video is there is also a distribution issue, and we shouldn't ignore that. Would you any thoughts on it?
Yeah, nope, you're right.
Yeah, my thoughts on it will be after the video ends, because I have 3 thoughts on it, something like this.
Absolute worst, it could justify his people being a bit more suspicious of elves in the country, but not much more than that. Going back to the bear question, saying that the solution to the problem would be to mobilize the entire United States military to remove the elvish menace, would also, in this situation, be a very silly, very ridiculous, very unnecessary overreaction. And that's assuming Model B. In Model A, the solution is even more obvious. Just make sure that one elf actually gets punished for their crimes, or at the very least is physically removed from the rest of society so they can no longer commit those crimes. And that's the issue I was trying to point out with Groypers and the JQ. They get hyper-fixated on Jews because they forget that there's more to statistical reasoning and more to understanding solutions than just per capita. You have to look at both the distribution and you have to look at the greater context of what's really going on. Because in the case of the
I don't know about Groypers. I have not yet put the time into figuring out what Groypers actually mean, but is it the Nick Fuentes people?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only watched 2 interviews of him, one of Piers Morgan and the other one of, I think, Crowder. And there, Nick Fuentes sounded like a reasonable guy who just thought, why not make my own mind up and reject the whatever society tells me. And then there is obviously a phase where you go overboard and take a stupid stance, and then when you start reasoning through it, then you go back to a more reasonable stance. And in these 2 specific interviews, he came across as if he was like this, and I feel the same way. That I feel like this should be an allowable position. For example, I actually had one of these in my younger years, youth, teenage, I don't know which age. I didn't talk about it publicly then. I didn't talk about anything publicly then, but I didn't mention that to anybody. But it's like in today's world, everybody is saying like, yeah, you're not allowed to hit your children, you're not allowed to hit your wife, you're not allowed to do any physical disciplinary action in any way. And then there was a phase where I was like, yeah, but you just say that, and sometimes you just say stupid stuff, so why should I accept that? And then I was like, for a while I was I withholded an opinion if I should if the husband should be allowed to discipline his wife with physical force. And then after a while of just living, then I came to the conclusion, it is a justified view that society holds that we shouldn't do that. And then I came back. And in my opinion, people should be allowed to hold stupid views. And yeah, they should be allowed to do that. But they should be allowed to listen, as stated, to listen to the arguments and then formulate their own opinions on it. And if you do that, then you can actually reason with people. And I would argue most Western people will be convincible to do the reasonable thing. But yeah, it's but yeah, thoughts and actions are also something different. I think people should be allowed to voice their opinion, even if they would be crimes. And if they act on it, then we can still punish them. But if they just voice it, then I don't think that requires punishment. What do you think of that?
If you're worried about the opinions of somebody like Nick Fluentes and he's whatever they say he is, then trying to shut him up and cancel him and throw him off the internet and whatever is the worst thing you can do. I'm like, it's funny how the people who worry about these bad opinions are also like, everybody's the next Hitler. And then as soon as the next Hitler shows up, they do exactly what the German government did to Hitler, which didn't work, which helped him come to power by shutting him up, throwing him in prison. Let them have their stupid opinions, and argue with them, make better arguments.
I think it's not just that the method backfires. I think people actually had. I don't know anything about the Second World War that is allows me to have a concept about it. But when I look at how today populist right is treated, I think if we assume the time during Hitler was the same as today, then probably people had a real grief that needed to be addressed. And if you shut up these people, then it's like the grief needs to be addressed anyway. So the best thing is let these people talk, and then act on the complaints of the reasonable half. The extreme half, they can have their opinion. You just don't act on their opinion. But with even the extreme, I'm in favor of having extremists in the government. They should just be a small minority, and I don't want to have only extremists of one side. I want to have extremists of every possible side, because they will detect things which are our blind spots. And then if they point to that and say, hey, look, you're all stupid, you all whatever, if they say stuff like this, and then if you actually listen to them, then you may actually uncover one of your blind spots. And then you can implement it in a mild version. And then the extremists just lost a lot of power. And so, yeah, but that only works if you actually have a government that functions halfway decently. It doesn't work if everything is just a huge bureaucracy.
You're never going to shut people up, and the only way to shut them up is to kill them, and then you turn them into a martyr anyways, and then their followers are that much more, zealous. And then like you kick somebody off where they're not allowed to voice their opinion. All they do is take it underground, and then the only people that go and follow them are the ones who agreed with them already, and then they're all there in their own echo chamber.
I think that's not completely true. And I have historical examples, namely the way the Muslims treated the whole East Christianity. They essentially created a two-class system and removed the way in which the Christians and every non-Muslim could speak. They could still speak among each other, but they made it extremely uncomfortable. And that way, and despite that, there was never a real revolution. So, I mean, it's probably a strong oversimplification, but I think there are ways in which you can keep people down. But it doesn't always work. And I think if we talk about Western Europe and America, then it's probably much harder than in other areas.
I think it just takes more time. Like eventually those Muslims got ran over by the Christians.
No, not most areas. You had a few generations of Muslims, and then they started outbreeding and genociding everybody else, and then it's a Muslim majority area. So a lot of areas which are now 90+% Muslims or Arabs or whatever, they were, for example, Turkey wasn't a Muslim a region. I think there were other ethnicities there, and then they just killed everybody. If I remember, I thought it was Turkey, but it might be a different land. And so the issue is there, like fertility rates, Muslims always had a higher one than everybody else. And also Muslims, there are always seasons in Muslim countries where they resort to genocide. And racially motivated genocide and religiously motivated. And so I think there are cases where you can heavily oppress somebody and it doesn't change. It doesn't lead to revolutions. But
if we're going to kill the guy in charge and then hunt down all his followers and execute them all, But they're not going to do that. They think they can just ban somebody from social media and then it goes away because they can't see it.
Yeah, I agree that it's the way the current Western governments want to implement it in Western countries. This one is most likely to end up in a revolution or even to the degree of another Nazi or another Hitler Rising. But I just want to point out it's not universalizable. I think there are other cases where it is not true. So that's why I pushed back. But yeah, why did we even come to that topic?
They get hyper fixated on Jews because they.
I remember. I have a friend where we talked about stuff, and then he said, "Yeah, all the Jews are bad." And then I said, "No, not really. I'm just against the globalists." And then he said, "Yeah, true. It's just the globalist Jews because not all Jews are like this." Or I think he used the word Zionist. But in the end, yeah. So in my opinion, it's the subcategory of Jews that is a problem, and Jews are just very intellectually active, so you find them on every side, and in leading positions on every side. And so, and also they are more likely to be urban, or most likely to be urban. And so they are obviously overrepresented among globalists and these people. But that's just because they are overrepresented everywhere where there is intellectual work done. Yeah, that's when he talked about Jews and Groypers, that's what I thought. The other thing was just some random whatever. Would you agree with that? That not all Jews, but just globalist Jews.
Yes, they've got their own culture and their religion, and it depends on the individual and what they. Same with Muslims, and every Muslim's a suicide bomber, and some of them don't take it as seriously, and some are just cultural Muslims, and yeah, it's an individual thing. You want to judge everybody as a group, or you want to, and sometimes you have to step back and, look at the group and say, hey, I should probably avoid this area because it's full of Haitians. But yeah, just because you run into a black guy doesn't mean he's a criminal. Just because you run into a Jew doesn't mean he's a Zionist globalist, and just because you run into a Muslim doesn't mean he's a terrorist.
I think the comparison between Muslim and Jew is actually bad, because Jew is an ethnicity as well, Muslim isn't. And so Jew is, if something is an ethnicity and one that for 2000 years hasn't lived in the same place, that means they have a much higher diversity of thought. And also Muslim sources are like, we have this one authority and innovation is a big sin. Therefore, any Muslim who innovates or who changes the idea or even a single letter of the law, it's theoretically a heretic. We just don't punish them, or we just don't treat it as strictly every time. And so there it's like a solid core, and there is always a force drawing back to that solid core. And with the Jewish core is the Talmud. Is it the Talmud? I think, yeah. And there it's essentially you can find every possible opinion in there, because there's just like this rabbi taught this, and then this rabbi looked at this and proposed a different opinion, and this rabbi looked at both of these and proposed a third opinion and a fourth as well. And so they don't have this is specifically our ruling, and everybody who deviates from it even in the slightest way is a heretic that needs to be killed. They have much larger diversity in them. And so that's why I think Muslims are more generalizable than Jews in that aspect. Both on a practical and on a theoretical level.
Is this possible that I think the term Muslim is more narrow than the term Jew, because you say Muslim and it's, I'm Middle Eastern and I grew up reading the Quran. But you say Jew, it could mean, yeah, their ancestors are Jewish, they live in America and they're not religious at all. It could mean they are an Israeli. It could mean they're a Zionist Jewish supremacist. You don't know.
Yeah, but that's my point. That you said they are similar. Jews and Muslims are similar, and my point is, since Muslim is a more narrow term, we can more easily universalize them compared to Jews.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Yeah, but also, actually, it's not all that important for them.
Forget that there's more to statistical reasoning and more to understanding solutions than just per capita. You have to look at both the distribution and you have to look at the greater context of what's really going on. Because in the case of the JQ, their issue is mainly just having a disproportionately high representation in backroom corrupt deals, lobbying, foreign aid, influence in the bureaucratic state, as well as the cathedral of academia and media. And of course, it also should be pointed out that the distribution in this is much closer to Model A here. Most Jews aren't actually involved. It's really just a high representation in the top 1% of elites. And what a lot of times I'll see happen is that noticers will notice this and basically fall into this rabbit hole of completely counterproductive, ridiculous anti-Semitism. They will conclude that because of this high per capita influence, then removing of the Jews is somehow the highest political importance. When in reality, no, it's not. The real solution to the bureaucratic state is to just abolish the bureaucratic state. Like, for example, when it comes to foreign aid, what really needs to happen is that our politicians shouldn't be allowed to even give out foreign aid. And when that happens, the fact that Israel gets a disproportionately high amount of foreign aid, well, at that point, it wouldn't even matter anymore. That's the point
I think that's a solid point.
tried to make. While their contributions to these problems is high per capita, because the total number of the problem is not that high, it doesn't meaningfully change the solution to these problems away from just abolishing these institutions outright and taking powers away from politicians that they shouldn't have to begin with. That is the flip side of per capita that a lot of people don't really get. There's a lot more to statistics and strategy and understanding what's going on in the world and how to fix it than just per capita. Per capita is important, but it's not everything. Anyways, hopefully that clears a few things up. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support me, you can do so on Ko-Fi, Subscribestar, or by buying some merch. That is all for now. Till next time.
And I find it funny that he said there is a lot more to per capita than just per capita, and he brought one thing that is more. And I found that funny, and that's also the reason why I wrote my comment below it and why I made the review stream. And first, why not start with you? Can you think of something else that makes it more nuanced than just these Model A versus Model B? Is it? Oh, that's the best one here, Model A versus Model B. Can you think of some more things than this?
More things. I don't know what you got.
Yeah, I got stuff.
You got stuff.
Of course I got some, otherwise I wouldn't make the stream.
Something more, both per capita. I'm out of blank. See what you got.
Okay. First is rather obvious if you think about it. Let's take this here. And this is a high elf, this is a wood elf, this is a dark elf, this is a whatever elf. Then I would say let's just remove all high elves and then the issue is solved. I think that's a rather obvious thing, that sometimes there are subgroups. And there are also, we can also inverse it and say, some people say, like the Republicans say, I'm against illegal immigrants. And then the Democrats come and say, yeah, immigrants. And then they group the illegal ones with the legal ones. And that way they water, is it? Water out? I don't know. In German there is a word. What?
Muddy the water.
Yeah, in German it's called verwaschen. It's like when you have paper and then you with a pen you write on it and you have a clear mark, and then if you put water on it then it spreads out and then it's less clear. There is a term for this. Yeah, dilute. Yeah, it's in German there is a specific saying for this or
You have me here trying to teach you English words. It's not a great.
Yeah, it's it's you. I asked for an English word for an analogy or for a wording, not for the concept. But yeah, It's essentially you dilute the system if you have, let's say, if you have different species, and then you have, let's say, 100 crimes or 10 crimes for the humans, 10 crimes for the orcs, and 10 crimes for the dwarf, and then you have 100 times for the crimes for the elves, but 100 or 90 of these are done by just the high elves, but all the other elves, they have a lower than average crime rate or whatever. But if you make a average over all the elf types, then you can make it appear as if the elves are less criminal, or the high elves are less criminal than they actually are. And also you can then say, look, you know a wood elf and he is a perfectly nice person and there are no bad wood elves, therefore we shouldn't punish high elves as a group. So that's one issue, and I assume you were aware of that concept, you just didn't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very obvious one. And then the next, I have to read my comment again because I don't know it by heart. Oh yeah, that's okay. One thing, let's just say we have again the humans, dwarves, orcs, and elves, and there is just among all of these individuals, there is just randomly one specific individual, like just one individual, and he is doing a lot of crimes. And then in which group he ends up being, whatever group he ends up, it will make this specific group look bad. So that's that would be this thing here. But let's just say you have 20 countries, and in every country there is one of these one of these people or elves which make a lot of crime. But in all the other countries, the humans, dwarves, orcs, and whatever, this is absent. So it's a pattern that elves produce 1% of highly criminal people, and the other groups don't do that. I think then we should then we shouldn't just treat it as a complete outlier, because it's a repeatable pattern that elves seem to create. Like, just the way elves are, wherever they show up, for some reason they always produce a minority of elves that are highly criminal. I think then we do have a pattern which is worth investigating. And when it comes to Muslims, in my opinion, then wherever Muslims show up, there is war, and there are issues, and it's just a minority. But for some reason, in every country, there is a minority of Muslims that commit terrorist attacks, and so then it is worth asking what in the Islamic ideology causes this. Or when we go to Jews, for some reason, wherever Jews show up, they end up in the government and they end up corrupting stuff. Then it's worth asking ourselves, why does that always happen when they show up? And in my opinion, with the Muslims, it just goes back to their most beloved person, who is precisely of the extremist character, and other ideological things that support that. And when it comes to Jews, then I think, like I already mentioned before, they are just urban people who are very verbally intelligent, so they end up in whatever profession requires them to speak a lot, and that is politician, that is comedian, that is intellectual thinker, and they end up in all sides of these issues, and some of them are corrupt, and some of them are not, and some of them fight corruption. And so in the case of the Jews, I think they are just they for some reason end up in position where they have more influence over stuff, and sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's negative, and people only look at the negative aspects, and then it looks like and so in both cases, both in the Muslim and in the Jewish ones, it's worth asking what is actually the reason that causes that issue, that 1% that you don't want. And then it's the question, since there seems to be a common cause, is it worth actually doing something about it? Or should we actually do something about it? Do you understand the whole concept, or do you think there is something to it? Or yeah.
Yes. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Also in this point, here I specifically focus on Muslims. Again, in my opinion, it's in a way, why should I blame this elf for the crime that this elf does? That's in our modern world, we do not like collective punishments for individual actions, and there is a very understandable cause for that. But I think this is a moral statement that grew in a Western ethics system, and since it's Western ethics system, it's obviously optimized for Western cultures. But it's when we talk about Somalia, for example, they are not a Western culture. They are a highly tribalistic culture, and there they do not. If you as a non-Somalia person say, look, here is a criminal who did a lot of crimes, I want to do something against this specific individual, then this one will come and say, prevent you from doing something against this individual. So as I've heard the statement, Islam, the moderate Muslim is like the grass that hides the snake, and in sometimes that's not true, or sometimes it's indirectly true in a sense that moderate Muslim truly has condemns the extremists in both private and public, and tries to get the extremists out of their own mosques, and tries to fight them on an ideological battle. I know a few. If I want to just so I don't always talk bad about Muslims, I have actually an example who I can recommend when it comes to this. Wait a second, I quickly have to find him. Where is how is he called? Is it? No, not him. Ah, yeah. I found him. Behind the whale. Not this. Behind whales. Oh, without the D. But is it him? I never looked him specifically up. I always heard videos of him or about him. Yeah, it's him. This guy, he is actually fighting against corruptions among Muslims. I can highly recommend him. There are Muslims like this. He is definitely not the grass that hides the snake. There are individuals like this. I can celebrate them. But a lot of Muslims are like, there is a Muslim terror attack, and then they go on the radio and say, look, we're so nice Muslims, we fear now Islamophobia and whatever. And those Muslims are grass that doesn't only hide the snake accidentally. This is grass that actually actively tries to hide the snakes. And so, or the Muslims that invite Saudi Arabian imams and scholars into their mosques, and then you have more people going to the Taliban than the UK military in the UK and stuff like this. There is actually, even despite them not, I shouldn't have, is it, or was it here? Yeah. Despite these Muslims not committing crimes, they are aware of this crime, and they prevent people from looking into this crime. And in my opinion, those Muslims, they are just as responsible to this thing as the one who actually did the deed, and therefore, in my opinion, we should be allowed to commit some form of collective punishment. Of course, we should still have justice. Just like I said, there are Muslims I can stand behind who are definitely not like this, but those are far and few in between. So, yeah, this is to extend this point of per capita. Exactly. And then there is a last point, a third point, which I want to point out. And this one is actually, this one assumes that we have the distribution of the elves and the per capita of the elves may be precisely the same as the local people. So it's immigrants that are perfectly fine. Everything is in order with them. And for that, I want to show you an image of a map. Bavaria, is it like this? I only know it in German. Yeah. Here, as you can see, is there one where you also see Switzerland, Bavaria and Switzerland? Let's go back and let's go via maps. So as you can see, is it this? Yeah, in German it's Bayern, that's what I know. So this region here is Germany, or it's a part of Germany, and it's culturally close or close-ish to Switzerland, and it's also one of the more productive regions of Germany, and sometimes people from there have voiced the opinion that they would rather leave Germany because of bureaucracy and bad governing, and they would like to join Switzerland. and I have not heard of a single Swiss person. Like, all the Swiss people I've heard of, they pity Bavaria, but no one would agree to it. And there is a specific Formel Schweiz. There is a specific reason for it, and that has something to do with politics. We have, or let's, so here, this is Switzerland. This is a map of Switzerland. I didn't want to download it. I want to show. Okay, then I have to use a different one. So this is a slightly cut off map of Switzerland, and every color stands for a different language. Blue is French, red is German, yellow is Romansh. That's everybody who speaks Romansh also speaks German. It's a almost dead language that is only spoken in Switzerland, but we keep it alive. And green is Italian speaking. And it's roughly 60% is German speaking, 30% is French speaking, and 10% is Italian speaking, roughly. And then 0.1 or whatever is Romansh speaking, but they count to German speaking. And that's the setup of Switzerland. And it's also French speaking. They usually vote more left. That's why I found it funny that you said you would most likely be Fribourg. But based on the video, you couldn't have known that. But generally, French-speaking regions are more left-leaning. But yeah.
Yeah, forget Italian speaking French.
What?
Forget it. I ain't learning French.
Yeah, I know. But as you can see, there are some regions in Fribourg that are German-speaking. Anyway, we have a ratio of a very specific ratio, and currently the French-speaking people already feel like the small brother that is bullied, and the Italian-speaking Swiss people, they say like, yeah, I know you French-speaking, you feel like the little brother that doesn't get a voice, but I don't get any voice. But we have always we have 7 presidents. Formal. We have 7 presidents, and we take care that we take care that we have multiple parties. Like Switzerland doesn't have just 2 parties, but many, like 12 or whatever or more, and each party has one, and then the most populated parties have a seat as the president. So I think SVP has, that's the Conservative Party. That one has 1 or 2 seats. I'm not up to date. I should be, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah, here is an image. The biggest one has 2 seats. The second biggest one has 2 seats. Then the third biggest one apparently has also 2 seats, and 2 presidents. And then the fourth biggest party has 1 president. And so they actually have to reach a consensus. And usually we always take care that at least one of these, or that one of these 7 is an Italian-speaking one. And I don't know, I think we don't pay attention to that specifically, but generally, let's say 2 or 3 are French-speaking, and the rest is German-speaking. So we want to make sure that the different regions are represented and they have a voice. And now let's look at Bavaria again and Switzerland. Let's just make it like map. Can I do it like this? Oh, I think here it's visible. Now, here, this is Switzerland, and this whole region is Bavaria, and it has the same population as the whole of Switzerland. And of course, it's politically more aligned with the German-speaking Swiss people, so with this part. And let's just say we now double our population, and everybody that is newcomer has this view here. That will obviously mess up the whole balance that we are currently having. And so even though these would be productive people that contribute to Switzerland, they would still change the culture. And so there is, in my opinion, argument against mass immigration, even if everybody is friendly and willing and everything. Just I'm not against immigration as a whole concept, but I'm against mass immigration even when people are from compatible cultures. I think the threshold of when we should cut it off is the more compatible it is, the higher the threshold is. So I would much less opposed to having 1% of the Swiss population immigrate to Switzerland when they are from Bavaria compared to from Somalia or whatever. But there is still an upper limit where I would say, no, that's too much. And so I think that's the third point which I wanted to show. And this one is currently completely excluded from all the online conversations which I'm aware of, where people start to oppose the mass immigration. Currently, people only talk about the illegal immigration and the violent immigration, because that's the one which you can stand in front of the public and say without a bad conscience, look, I don't want to have UK daughters being raped. Therefore, I want to have these people out. I think there is also an argument to say, let's just slow immigration down. We have too much anyway, and let's take care that we, as a country, start to work out our own issues. And so that's my third point, which is. Works even if the per capita looks the same as the local population, or it's even better than the local population. I mean, Japanese people are perfectly fine people. I love what they are doing with their country. Not everything, of course. They have a lot of bad things as well. But I think when they immigrate, they are at the lowest crime. They have the lowest crime rate of them all. But if they suddenly have a large enough voting bloc in Switzerland that they start to change laws in a relevant way, I'm not sure how positive the change would be if you have a collectivist mindset influencing Switzerland in a significant way. And so, yeah, that's my third point, which I wanted to add. Do you, as I've heard some grunts of approval.
This is evident even inside of the country. I mean, people in Texas don't want Californians moving there. People in Florida don't want New Yorkers moving there. People here where I'm at, we frown at people from Kentucky, and they're right next door, just across the river. Mm-hmm. You know, even inside the same country, you have a bunch of people that are just from a slightly different area, and I think it makes it worse when it's politics and democracy involved, and those people get to move in and have a vote. If you were going to let those people in, then they should be able to look at where they're coming from and say, yeah, that wasn't very good, or this was messed up. So I'm moving here where it's better. Therefore, I should humble myself and not involve myself in their politics, since I am choosing to come here instead of where I am from because I think what they're doing is better. I should not be allowed to vote or hold office.
Yeah, I think that's it's a reasonable point. Of course, it completely goes against universal suffrage and all these things, but I think just like he said, it's deceptively nuanced, and just saying, yeah, the shape distribution is not it's not necessarily constant. That's not enough. We also have to be able to talk about the even more nuanced stuff, and yeah, we just did. I brought all my points, at least the ones which I could think of when reading the what is it? They already almost 2,000 videos. That's comments. That's a lot. I wanted to show my comment, but scrolling to it will be a pain.
Did you send it in the group chat?
No, I could do that. I could copy it. Cancel. I just for completeness sake of the whoever is interested in it, they can pause the video and read it. So jump to present. Done. Copy image. Paint. So whoever is interested in it can read it here. Is it? Ah, that's annoying. That's the beautiful thumbnail. Over here. I want to have it readable for people. So it's more or less what I discussed here. So it's more of a technically correct thing. Yeah. I have talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Do you have any additional thoughts?
Nope, don't think so.
Yeah, I guess thank you for how is he called again? This
MentisWave.
Yeah, MentisWave. Thank you for MentisWave for inspiring the conversation. It's the first time I made a review video where I didn't criticize the content. And thank you, Tech and Talk, for tagging along and bringing your ideas as well. And yeah, I guess
I'm only because you pay me.
Yeah, I bully you into it. And I don't even pay you with the huge profits I make. Yeah, I bet over the course of the next 2 years, I will have a total of 2 views or something like this. With that, I will make a lot of money. Yeah. Anyway, I will stop now the stream, and I wish everybody a nice evening, day, morning, whenever you listen to it. Goodbye.